Hey everybody, it's Jordan here from smartPhone. Now today I'm going to do something slightly different and take a deeper look into some of the best practices we use when we set up smrtDialer with Podio. To me, a couple of really important goals we always keep in mind are, number one, keeping your database clean and to make sure that your cold calling lists aren't cluttering up your live leads. Number two, we want to make it easy for the dialers to simply log into smrtDialer and click play. We don't need to make them think or worry about Podio at all. And number three, we of course want to automate moving leads from the cold calling list into our property seller leads, however you have it set up in Podio, to make sure that hot leads go straight into where you keep your leads and they can be actioned by your internal salespeople. To do this, we're going to look at a couple steps. The first step is how to prepare a good cold calling app. Now, of course, the fields you use will change depending on your own structure and the list you use, but it's important that you prepare a place to upload your leads. The second step is how to prepare a good campaigns app. Again, it's really important to make sure that you are tracking your cold calling lists against a campaign so you can see the return of investment you're doing. Number three, how to prepare an Excel for upload. That's something that if you're new to Podio, always gets people confused, and I'm going to go through how we do this in our company. For how to upload an Excel, how to use Podio's upload capabilities to make sure you can easily get lists into your system, how to create views for that list in your cold calling app so that you can easily segment the data you've uploaded into different smrtDialer campaigns, how to create campaigns in smrtDialer based on the views you've just created, and finally, once you've been making calls, how good automation can be set up to push converted leads up to your property system or to DNC/kill off leads that are dead so you can keep the metrics of your list as well. I'm going to do this, it's a bit longer video, but it's more of a how-to best practice guide that we wanted to put together to give you the benefit of the insight we've developed working with people for years integrating smrtDialer, cold calling, and Podio together. So let's dive right in. Okay, step one in this process is really to prepare your cold calling app. Now, one of the great things about smrtDialer is that you can upload your lists into a cold calling app that's completely separate from where you keep your normal leads, and then use the genius of Podio to push everything over and automate it. This means that you can, most importantly, keep your databases clean. You're not cluttering away. Now, when you install smrtDialer, we do install a Smart Leads app and a call script app. And of course, you can use the Smart Leads app and customize that. We do tend to install cold calling list apps. And the key for us is how we set these up to make sure we're tracking the right things in the right way. So right away, you'll see that we have some sections here. Right at the top, we link to, on the upload, when we upload the leads, which we'll show you in a future part of this video, we link to our campaigns app. And that's really important because it means we can track every lead to their correct campaign, and we are able to do the metrics and make sure that we're tracking success rates on each different list as a campaign. So that's one important thing. Two is we do tend to have a field called call lists. And the reason that is if you're uploading a 100,000 leads list, you're going to probably want to split this up, and you want to have different options of how to split it up. You can split it up by this call list field, or by agent if you want to split it up by agent, or by any sort of address as well. It's really up to yourself, but that's sort of, to me, those are some best practices that help you out. The next section here are this is the data that your list holds. So you can see here we got a full name, first name, last name, email address, phone, property, mailing, and then some specific information, owner occupied, credit score, other information. It really doesn't matter. These fields will depend and will fluctuate based on the type of list you're buying. You can add different You can add different fields here. If you've bought a specific list that has specific information, you can add all that. But a key thing is that you have one unified phone field where you're going to map all of the phones, all the phone numbers that you have for the lead. You're not going to have separate fields. You're going to have one unified phone field. That's a critical part of preparing your cold calling app. And then the final thing that we do, and then again, this is what we find as good practice, is we've got this sort of process management section where we track the smrtDialer dispositions, we track the status of the lead, and then we essentially manage the push of a cold calling lead to our main system. So in our main system, we have a properties app to track the property, the leads you're working on, and we have a contacts app to track people. So you can see here we've got a process that we do using GlobiFlow, where when a lead is qualified, we're going to search the contacts app to see if the contact already exists, and if it does, link to the existing one. If it doesn't, create a new one, and then we'll drop that relationship field here. And then, of course, we're going to do the same for the property. Does this property already exist? If it does, link to it. If it doesn't, create a new one and link it to it. It's just a good way of sanity checking to make sure you're not cluttering your database. These duplications, they don't always work 100%. You're still going to find you miss some things if people misspell things or spell them a different way. But it's a good way of catching 80% of it. And then finally, in the cold calling list, we do tend to have these date fields where we automatically put the creation date, and then if someone stamps it as dead, DNC, or converted, we put the date of that so we can track how long it's open. And then of course we also we tend to track how many communications we've logged to this specific app, so we know that as well. So that's how you prepare your cold calling app. Step 2 in this process is optional, but it's something we recommend, and that is to have a dedicated campaigns app. Now, we've got a specific way of doing this, but the key thing here is this campaigns app is going to have a couple important bits. Number one, we do tend to, if it's a cold calling list, we do tend to put our targets here. So we have something we want to track against. We also tend to, track throughout the system. So we track how much we're spending per month on the campaign, or if it's you can have a single field for how much you spend if you're buying a list, or if you want to track your VAs. You can track via calculation fields how many things are happening and how much money is being generated and what your ROI/spend per leads are. And most importantly, having some sort of search ID. Well, we do this by putting the GlobiFlow Podio item ID, using GlobiFlow to do that. But this can be anything as long as it is unique. And what that will allow us to do is will allow us to use our system to search on upload, or when automations happen, we want to be able to search for this campaign and know that we're working with this campaign. And this is going to play into how we manage our Excel uploads as well. There are other things, depending on the type of campaign, you may want to have different fields in here. If it's an inbound, like if it's a postcard campaign you're sending out, you can associate it with a smartphone tracking number so that every new call gets tracked to this campaign. There's lots of automations here, but for the purpose of cold calling, the key is that we create a campaign for the list we're uploading, and that we have a specific search ID so that we can link everything together as we qualify our cold calling lists. The next step in the process is a really critical one. It's something that people get wrong a lot, and that is how to prepare your Excel for upload. Now, obviously, I don't want to work with a huge list for a test, but you can see here we've got sort of some basics. We've got a list that has a first name, last name, some email addresses, some phone numbers. We've got a property address, we've got a mailing address, and we've got some extra fields here, which are related to the fields we have in our cold calling app, right? And of course, if you have more fields that you want to track and show to the agent on a call, you can add more columns. That's entirely up to yourself. But this is certainly a good example of a list. Now, there's a few things we're going to do here. usually we get a list which just has a first name and last name. So we've added these 4 columns. We've added a column for full name, a column for call list, a column for lead status, and a campaign search ID column. Now, there's a couple good Excel tips here. First of all, when you're doing a full name, if you want to concatenate 2 Excel columns to get a full name, you simply do the formula equals the first name column, the ampersand, space, double quote, space, double quote, space, ampersand, space, and then the second column. What that will do is it'll bring the 2 of those fields, E2 and F2, together with a space in the middle. So that means we suddenly get Joey space A, which is first name space last name. And of course, I've simply dragged this formula down to ensure that the same formula carries out as a basic of an Excel guide. The second thing is the call list. You remember from our cold calling app that we have this notion of the call list. So I've added a few of these in here. We've got call list AAA and call list B. Again, this would be a way of breaking up that Excel so that we can create different smart dialer campaigns and have them all working at the same time. So if you had 20,000, you could put in, 500 for call list A, 500 for call list B, or 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, however you want to break it up. The next status is we've put in the lead status just to make it easier on our automations. So I want this to populate with waiting, and I want the creation date to populate with the date. So I've got lead status and the and I'm going to add one for the date. So for lead status, I've got waiting here. Now, good helpful tip is if you want the same value to be filled in, whether it's a calculation or one of these sort of concatenations or not, you simply, instead of dragging, because you don't want to drag for 40,000 lines, you simply double click on that little green, see how it's changed the cursor? And that will go for as long as the next column has. So it's filled in to the end of this column. So that's a really great tip if you want to go for like 30,000 lines. You can just double click and it'll go all 30,000 lines with the same value, which is great. Now, the same thing I'm going to do for the date. I'm going to just put in the date uploaded or created today. It's US. I'll do it in US format. And I'm just going to copy it here. And then I will, again, double click, and that's the same date. And then finally, we've got the campaign search ID. Now, if you recall, in our campaigns app, we did mention that it was critical that you had a ID field to search with. And this is the ID field. It starts with a 162, ends with a 619. 162, 619, so the same one. And I, again, am just going to double click, and that same value gets the whole for all the fields. So this is a really great way of preparing the Excel. It means we've got the search ID, so we can link each row to the correct campaign. We're pre-filling some values here. We're selecting call lists. We've made a full name. And more critically, you can see how we've got our phone numbers identified as columns. So sometimes this will take you a bit of work on your lists, because I see this sometimes where it doesn't, it's got the phone type as column A and phone number as column B, and then phone type as column the next one as well, etc. That's not going to work very well. You're going to want it in this type of format. And you can see we've got some addresses here, and we've got some data to fill in. So this is all good, and it's now ready to go. The next step in this process is to upload that Excel spreadsheet that we've prepared. To do that, we're going to navigate to our cold calling app, the one we want to upload to. Please remember that there's a hard limit in Podio of 500,000 items per app. Quite honestly, we don't really like going above 400,000. Even 300,000 sometimes, depending on how much we have to do. So that's why we've got multiple apps here. But I'm going to navigate here to this cold calling list number 1 app, and I want to upload that list. So I'm going to go to this little wrench here, and I'm going to go to Excel import in the data section for this app. It's a great feature of Podio, and it's a more advanced thing if you've never played around with it. The Excel imports and the data settings here are very, very important. So I'm going to choose Excel import, and now we have an option to upload or drop our file. I'm going to choose, and I'm going to go to Assign Force, and there is the template we've been working on. And so once we upload the file, we then have to map the columns. And this goes into mapping against the app fields. And now there's a couple things that can trip you up here. And one is how we map against a related item like a campaign. If you remember, we've got the cold calling list as one app, but then the campaign is a completely separate app, and we're reaching out to that app via a relationship field. So well, let's do that first. You can see here we've got cold calling list, and you can see it says campaign is an app that has been referenced from the app referenced linked field linked campaign. That's exactly right. So these are all fields not in the cold calling list, but in the campaigns app. And what we want to do is we want to find this. This is the one we're trying to get, the campaign item ID. And we're going to drop our campaign search ID here. And you notice here it says you're adding contact into another app linked to cold calling list 1, which is true. We are essentially mapping our campaign search ID from the Excel into the campaign item ID field of another app. Now I'm going to close that. And now we're back to our cold calling list. So call list, I'm going to drag over. I'm not assigning to a user, so that's fine. And now I can start adding in the campaign information. So we've got full name. We're going to drag over first name, last name. I've only got one email space in this app because we don't really do email in these cold calling lists for our client. But we can add more. We could add it as an email list if we wanted to. And then I'm going to start adding the phone numbers. And you can see here, I open this up and I can add as many as I want. I'll add the first one, and it is a mobile, so I'll keep it as mobile. I'll add the second one. I'll set it to work. The third one, I'll set it to home. Fourth one to main. And you know what? I'm not going to bother doing the fax numbers. So that's the phone numbers now mapped. Now we've got two address fields, property address and mailing address for this. And sure enough, we've got property address and mailing address. So I'm going to sync postal code to postal code, city to city. If it's a zip, you can map that to postal code. Don't forget state to state and country to country. And then mailing address, I'll do the same thing. Address, postcode, city, state, and country. Finally, we've got our last fields. We've got county, we've got owner occupied, we got credit score, and other info. And then we had a couple other fields that we're just going to bring in, which is the lead status, and that's right here. And then we also want to do the creation date. So we're going to open creation date up, and we're going to drop creation date into the start date, and we're going to make sure it's US format because we did it in US format. And that's all we need to do. That's all our fields map. If we want to preview that, it'll give us a preview of the first line row. Let's make sure we think it looks right. We're happy. Campaign, yep. Call list, great. Names, addresses, looks perfect. So I then click next, and this, you see here, the final step of an Excel import is how you keep your data clean. And this is the second part that trips people up. I'm going to go through this with you right now. The next screen we're going to see is our ability to determine how to deal with duplicates and how to deal with related items. So you see here it says toggle the key onto dark background to prevent duplicate data. So what does this mean? You can see these keys here, and there are keys for a number of fields. If you click them so they're dark, so that you've selected them, the system is going to overwrite the existing data if it finds an identical match. We don't want that for full name, do we? Because there could be 2 Joey A's, there could be 2 Jordan Flemings, there could be 2 Tom Griffiths, whatever the name is. So having this selected as a duplicate potential is a bad idea for full name. But it is potentially very good for some, and it is critical for one, and that is the campaign, because we're linking to a related campaign. So the last thing we want to do is create a new campaign for every single uploaded list. If you upload 20,000 and you don't have this selected, it's going to create 20,000 campaigns, one for each upload. That's exactly what we don't want to do. So instead, we're going to go to the campaign item ID, which is the one we know we're referencing, and we're going to click this on. And that means that where it finds a match, which it will every time, because we've got this in the same one in every single row, it's going to instead link to the existing related item instead of creating a new one. So this is a critical one to remember to do. But you just have to be very careful in doing this. If you select the wrong one, you're going to find that you have less leads than you thought, and that the data will be wrong because, for instance, you've got 2 Joey A's, and it's going to overwrite the first Joey A with the second Joey A's information. So my advice is to make sure your lists are prepared like I've prepared them, and make sure that the only one we want to do is the campaign that we're linking to. And finally, we click import. And the system's going to go ahead and give us a note that your data is being imported. Now, because there are only 4, I would suggest it's going to finish very quickly, which it will. If there are a lot of them, if you're doing 20,000, you've got an upload limit of 20,000 at a time. It can take half an hour to do 20,000. It's a slow process sometimes. Let's just refresh this app, and we'll now see that we've got a bunch of brand new Philly A ones that we've just uploaded. There's the Joey A. This calculation field will resolve soon. You can see it's linking to the pre-existing Philly probate list, which is exactly what we wanted. And all that detail we've got is here, including the addresses. Everything is ready. It's waiting, and the date created is up. So that is how to properly upload an Excel list of cold calling leads. The next step in this process is to think about how you want to segment the data in your cold calling list so that you can better create campaigns in smrtDialer. So there are 2 basic ways of creating campaigns and segmenting data in a smrtDialer list. One is by using a single category field and a single category field option, and one is by a view. The 2 are linked, but I would say the view is the most powerful. The reason being is that a category field will allow you to basically filter by one variable only. So if I say, show me all the ones where it's call list C, for instance, it's going to show me all call list C's regardless of campaign. That's not usually what people want. Instead, what we do is we create a view using the segmentation of the data that we want. So what I've done is I've actually gone out and I've changed some of the ones we just uploaded to call list C so we can create a brand new view. And to do that, you simply use your Podio filtering to apply the data filters you want. I'm going to do this by saying, let me see all the ones that are, first of all, to the affiliate probate list campaign. And that will take my number from 13 down to 10. And then I'm going to add a second data filter where the call list is call list C, and that takes me down to 5. So what you can see here, what we've done is we've segmented the data in this app by 2 vectors. 1, campaign, and 2, call lists. And that is meaning that this view that we're about to create is going to only show us leads that are linked to the probate campaign we've selected and have the call list. So it's an additive process. It is providing us with two data vectors that we're segmenting, which is something a category field can't do. So now that I have the data in the way I want it, I simply save, click here and save the view. I'll do it Philly C list for cold calling demo. I'm going to make it a team view because it needs to be a team view. And I don't need to split it by anything at the moment because it doesn't really matter. If you want to see it by status, you can do that as well. Like say if I wanted to see it by lead status to know where we are. See, it says waiting 5 because we haven't done anything. But most importantly, we now have a view called Philly C list for cold calling demo, which is only showing us the data from our cold calling app that we want. And that's what we need for our next step, which is preparing the smrtDialer campaign. The next step in the process is to create a smrtDialer campaign based on the new view we've created for our uploaded list. And to do that, I'm going to go over to smrtDialer, I'm going to go over to campaign, and I'm going to add a brand new campaign. Now, there's a couple things you need prepared to do this already. You need the voicemail drop recording already recorded. You need the callback recording already recorded. And if you need help with how to do this, please look into docs.smrtphone.io in our help center as we have videos to show you how to do that. In this case, I'm going to do a Philly C list cold calling demo list. I always like to give context. And then we've got some options here. First, we're going to select which phone number are we going to make the calls from. I'm going to select this one. The next, I'm going to select how many lines I'm going to call at once. If you're using the single line, you're only going to have one option. If you're using the multi-line dialer, then you can do up to 4. I'll just do 2 for now. Phone number depth is an important one. Phone number depth basically lets you set how many numbers you're going to call per lead. If you're using a skip tracing, you're going to have quite a few numbers, so you probably want to go up to 10. But for a warm follow-up campaign, you can probably go down to 2 or 3 because you're not going to have that many. In this case, I'll just go to 5. Voicemail drop, we've got the already pre-prepared voicemail drop recording from our media manager, and please do check our help center if you need help with this. We're going to do our callback drop, and if we place them on hold, we're going to use, ambient 1. Doesn't really matter. The next step in the process is to map to Podio. And this is where smrtDialer is really the best option for Podio in so many ways because we reach right into Podio and we do everything in your Podio system. And for you to create a campaign, you simply find that wholesale where your cold calling list app is. For us, it's here. Find the app where you've uploaded your lists. You remember we uploaded to cold calling list 1. And then choose what type of filter, because obviously we only want to take for this campaign the data we want. So again, like I've said in the earlier step, we've got 2 options, either a category or a view. In our case, we created a view, so I'm going to click over to view and select it. And there's that view we created, Philly C list for cold calling demo. Bam. That has allowed us to choose the workspace, choose the app, and the data segmentation we want. And next, we simply have to map the fields that we want to show the agent when they're on a call. We're going to take full name. We take the phone number. We're going to take, we're not going to do email. We're going to take the property address, and we're going to add the mailing address. We're going to add the county. We're going to add the credit score, owner occupied, and let's say credit score as well. There, perfect. That's all we really want. And we finish. So that's us mapping, and we've synced 5 leads. And if you recall, we have 5 here. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we need. Now, the final bits of making sure you've got a good campaign set up are, number 1, you want to make sure that you've got your status filters selected properly. What this means is which status filter is going to be applied on the dispositions, call dispositions, which will tell us to skip the lead. DNC is always checked. You can't uncheck it because, of course, we're going to skip the lead if it's DNC'd. But we're also going to check to skip if we've converted the lead, because we don't want to call them again. If we're running the list second time, we don't want to call the people we've already pushed to our Seller Leads app. You can also set your wrong number filter and choose whether that wrong number filter will remove the wrong number automatically from Podio as well. I'm going to set that to yes. If you choose to use call scripts, I'll just go back one more time into the campaign settings. If you choose to use call scripts as well, you can upload a call script here via Podio web form. We've got documentation on do this. And of course, you can set, can all your agents see this or only a selected amount? And this is great for where you only want some agents to work on campaigns. So you don't want to even show them what other campaigns are in there. You don't want them to be able to open up and do anything with them and make any calls. So that is us all set to go, and we are ready to run our campaign. Right, the final step I just want to go through with you is, well, how does this all come together? So to do that, I'm just going to demonstrate how we can make calls with our smrtDialer list and what happens when we click those dispositions to mark things off in our cold calling list and automate things like DNC dates and things like pushing up to our actual acquisitions system. So to do that, I'm going to pop over to campaigns. I'm going to open up our Philly C list, and I'm going to run a call session. Now, when you do this, you often do want to resync from Podio. I'm not going to, because I just literally uploaded this list, so I haven't made any changes. I'm just going to click Run the Campaign. That's going to open up my agent list. You can see that we've not done any dialing yet. 0% of our list has been called. Our 2 lines are ready, and we're ready to go. I'm going to click Dial, and it's going to start to call. And I am on a call with Tessa B.
Hey,
that's a fake number. So here we are now on the call. I can take a look at all the information available to me and see everything I need. I've got the map right there, and I can go ahead. I'm just going to stop the call. So I'm an agent, and I've just made this. I've connected to this person. Fantastic. I've seen all this. I'm going to take my notes on the call. If I had a call script, I could fill that in as well. I don't tend to use it myself. Take my notes, and then most importantly, I'm going to complete the disposition. And this is the key bit. And I'm going to click Converted. And this is what we want our agents to do, because essentially they've just clicked Start. They've been connected to a call. They've seen the information, and they've gone, great, this was a successful call, and this person is ready to go. Now let's pop back over into our cold calling list. This was Tessa, right, that we just spoke to? Who do we call? Tessa B. Let's look at Tessa B. And we can see, if we go down to the bottom, we can see some things are happening already. And the first thing that's happening is you can see the smrtDialer disposition has been switched to converted. You can see the status has been switched to qualified and pushed. We've done a contact duplicate sync. We've not found a duplicate, and we've created a brand new contact in our contacts app for Tessa B. She will now be in our contacts app. We've just created her. There she is. We've also done a property duplicate search, and no, we've not found a duplicate. And so we've gone ahead and created that property as well. And of course, we've filled in the key information here of when qualified, so we can do some metrics around that. And in the properties app, we've automatically pushed Tessa B as that seller. So right away, that is a massive automation. If you think about what's happened here, the agent has simply loaded up a list, got on the phone with someone and clicked converted. And then in the background, we've gone ahead and we've said, great, let's do all the work for them. We have updated this app item. We have created a contact. We've created a property. We've linked the two together. And everything is all linked up to our campaigns app as well. If you do this properly, that means we've got the best of all worlds, right? We've got our agents just sitting on the phones making calls. They just simply have to take their notes properly. They have to click the right button, whether it's DNC, converted, or dead, whatever it is. And if they do that and they focus on the dialing, we can do the rest by properly setting up a Podio system. So I hope this kind of run through and help guide has been useful. It's really best practice that we've developed over years of working in Podio. And if you kind of follow this and follow this sort of methodology, you'll be able to successfully manage your cold calling data, successfully create proper lists, keep your data segmented to keep your data clean, and ensure that your agents are able to simply log into smrtDialer, click start, make calls, convert, and let the system do the work for you. Be delighted to get all your feedback, and of course, keep watching our website and the smartphone workspace for the latest help guides. We're going to try and do more of these as we go to give you guys a more benefit of all the things we see across everyone in smartphone. Happy phoning!